Welcome back, everybody. Kagurabachi is here with chapter 99, coming off of a break week for Hokazono. Completely in support of the break week. I know obviously he's been pushing hard. We've had some of those unfinished chapters, so I am more than happy to allow the man to take some time, really put together exactly what he is envisioning for these chapters. And with chapter 99, this is a incredible setup for chapter 100. I had kind of in past videos thrown around some, ideas of what chapter 100 would land on, because a lot of times with a bunch of series and these mangakas, they know, hitting those big chapter milestones, they coincide plot points with those chapters. And a lot of the times on the hundreds, there's always big stuff that goes down. And I had always thought that it will involve the sword master. And with the ending of this chapter, which we will get to, I am thinking that that is along the right train of thought. But without further ado, I'm going to jump right here into the deep dive for Kagurabachi Chapter 99, titled Strongest. And the chapter opens up with seeing two bloodied fists from our boy Azumi. You don't get to see him here, but that is where we left off with him. He was saying he was going to keep Yura stalled in there for as long as he could, and he just was trying to give everybody else in the Kamunabi headquarters enough time to find the second vessel, eliminate them so that they could bring in reinforcements with the enchanted blade, so they would actually have a chance of stopping Yura with the Shinichi's power. And that's where we left that group off. Azumi, Uraha, and Natsuki all facing off against Yura to stall, and we cut away. Which now we still only get to see his fists here, but then we get to see Hagiwara emerging from the ground like, Diglett, the Pokemon, especially with the mask of his friend. He's just popping out of the ground after he sent that attack all the way through headquarters at who we find out this chapter, Yuki Sada is the name of the young male Hishaku member. So Yuki Sada was the one that got blasted through the torso, and Hagiwara seemingly made his way all the way up in the follow-up of that attack, which I find to be very interesting because we know last chapter he was under the influence of the demon dog head sorcery that after you destroy it, you are weighed down, and he was pressed to the floor. But right here, it seems that he's managed to actually traverse all the way up through the levels that he sent that attack. So I'm assuming the effects of the sorcery wore off, and then he was able to move, or he just simply powered through it and maybe now is out of range of the ability. But he comes through the ground. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, like Mr. Hagiwara, like you're still, I'm assuming they were going to say functioning because I'm sure it got around after the crazy events fighting against Sojo and his squad being wiped out. Probably most people knew he was out of commission, but Hagiwara lets everybody know that this guy's the other vessel, and they say like that's crazy because it's just some brat. And Hagiwara's like, sorry kid, like I gotta get rid of you or else we can't even call in reinforcements. And this kid Yuki Sada here just immediately pulls out a blade and goes for a counterattack. But Hagiwara's iron sand actually slices his arm holding the blade, slices it clean off. And they do comment, though, that Yuki Sada is extremely fast, even though he took a blow, the wound that he got from literally being pierced through the torso, that he's still very fast. But then he splinters him, pierces him with like a splintering attack of iron sand that pierces all throughout his body. He just lost an arm, but even through all of those attacks, Yukisada grabs his blade that's falling to the ground from the arm he had lost and still goes for a counterattack. But Hagiwara goes to block, and Yukisada actually falls back. So he gets some distance, and he says that there's no apology needed because he is actually 17. So he is saying that, you know, he's a grown up because, which 17, if I remember when I was 17 personally, what feels like forever ago, definitely was not a grown up by any means. But I also wasn't doing the things clearly that Yukisada is doing at this time. But then the left arm that he had lost just a moment ago actually just instantly regrows. So they're like, oh, he has regeneration, like regenerative abilities, perfect ability for buying time, which is exactly what they need him to do, because as long as he is alive and he is pulling those resources from the force field and altering the conditions on who is being let in, we can't get reinforcements. So this is actually the perfect stalling ability with the regeneration. But the Hagiwara comments on the fact that even though he has absurd regenerative abilities, the psychological strength to endure the pain, knowing like he'll regenerate, is still a tremendous sacrifice, that are just a tremendous mental capability, because even though you know you're going to regenerate, you are still withstanding the pain of lethal attacks. And I mean, I've always thought that about like super regenerative abilities. It doesn't necessarily mean you numb your feeling, your nerves, everything like that. But maybe over time, you just become a bit more desensitized to the pain. Kind of like, I think if anyone had read like Seven Deadly Sins, like Ban, the immortal, like he regenerates, he feels everything, but he regenerated. He'd been enduring it for so long that the pain, basically, he didn't really feel pain. And he was seeking out things that would make him feel pain. So it's like maybe that's a similar case for this kid, for Yukisada here. But then he's getting ready to continue their showdown to try to take him out so they can bring in reinforcements. But Hagiwara actually collapses onto the ground. And he thinks on the fact that he's barely eaten anything in ages. So, and they went a little bit too hard. And it shows a panel of when he did the giant MRI scan of the entire headquarters. So a very large scale ability that pushed him too far, especially coming off of basically starving himself, because we know he was in a state of despair and was just refusing to eat, basically to let himself just waste away. So now jumping right into this extreme battle, pulling off huge scale sorcery abilities and not having eaten, he's seriously depleted on his energy resources. And Kugara, his mass ability, says that needs like a 20-second break. And he just yells out to the other Kamunabi members there that somebody needs to quick and decapitate the kid, because like he's the vessel, and clearly conventional wounds are not going to be enough to actually put him down. So they need to decapitate him. And that's where we turn the page, because they go into attack, but we turn the page and we get to see a panel of Hakari with his mask over his one eye, meaning he is utilizing the ability of his warehouse. And he teleports in Kiri with her giant sword right behind Yukisada. She goes for an attack, but Yukisada actually dodges out of the way, and she goes for a follow-up on his side, and he goes to block, or what looks like he's trying to block, and the sword actually cuts right through his arm, right through both arms, because he was like kind of like this, cut through both of them into his midsection. But then he immediately regenerates his arms and his side to trap the sword in his body so she can no longer wield it. So this is how he actually chose to disarm her, again, taking the attack willingly with the intention of locking it in his body through his advanced regeneration, which is like a super cool, kind of like insane, kind of gross, but really cool way to disarm an opponent with a weapon. And even Kiri's like, seriously? Like, for her, she's even surprised, because I mean, you just cut through somebody's torso and then they locked it in their body so they could take it away from you. And he kicks her away, but then we see Hakari in the doorway. He summons another sword from his warehouse, and then he uses an Iso shockwave to launch the blade at Yukisada's head. But Yukisada actually dodges, but then Kiri is right behind him to catch the blade and then immediately go for a strike, and she succeeds in cutting his head clean off. So Yukisada's head goes flying in the air, but he manages to actually like knock her away. His body does. And then he snatches his own dome right out of the air by its hair. And they're like, Hakuri's like, what? Like, what the heck is going on? And Yukisada begins to speak, and he says that if Yura says something's white, even if it's black, that means it's white. And he repeats saying, I'm the strongest Hishaku. Yura said so, so it has to be true. And this harkens all the way back to the beginning of the Kamunabi invasion, when they were all in that little waiting room area and they were talking about Yukisada being nervous. And that's where Yura had told him, like, don't worry, you're the strongest Hishaku member. And, you know, I still question that, but clearly Yukisada is someone who has so much belief and faith in Yura as his leader that's why he was saying, even if he says something's black, even though, or if he says something is white, even if it's black, that means it's white. So whatever Yura says goes. That's just the level of belief that he has in Yura. So Yura telling him, like, I don't believe, at least from what we've seen so far, that Yukisada is the strongest Hishaku member. He could be, and I'm excluding Yura once he's wielding the power of the Shinichi. Clearly that puts Yura like at the top of the organization. But I mean, I see it more as Yura used those words as an encouragement to Yukisada before the operation, because if he was nervous, he knows that Yukisada believes in what he says so much that if he tells him that before the operation begins, Yukisada is going to be operating at a higher level because of Yura's words and how much weight they carry to him personally. So that's how I see it. He could be. Let me know what you guys think down below. But Hagiwara even notices, like, well, even decapitated, like, it didn't take him out. He's like, is he invincible? Like, there's no way. There has to be some sort of trick to it. Like, even if they have to boil him or burn him, like, they've got to hurry up. And I'm thinking it's probably like a twofold sort of thing with Yukisada here. And it might be, one, his sorcery is the like super regeneration. And then two, we know that the process of becoming a vessel required him to actually alter the structure of his body and even got rid of some organs. So maybe those two things are playing together. And maybe Yukisada has some sort of like core in which that core is what needs to be destroyed. and maybe he can like move it around his body. So there has to be some sort of gimmick to it, because if he truly is invincible and could not just is immortal, then yeah, he very well may be the strongest member of the Hishaku. But I think we're gonna have to see, because I do think he's gonna have to get taken out, or else we are still going to be waiting on reinforcements. Now, they did say that eventually the Enchanted Blades, so Samura and Chihiro, would be able to break in eventually, but time is of the essence here. So hopefully they do take Yukisada out soon. But with how the chapter starts to go from here, I don't really know if that's going to happen, because while Hagiwara is laying on the ground, he just gets this look of absolute terror on his face. And then he immediately sends his iron sand to Hakari and Kiri and like pushes them to the side, while also running himself over and then enclosing themselves against the wall behind a wall of iron sand, like just a highly condensed wall of iron sand. And the reason he was so scared and he got them behind this wall for safety is because then we cut to see Yura standing behind the 3 Kamunabi members in the hallway, and they all just fall to the floor. The flowers are blooming up out of them and out of the ground, and we have Yura standing there with the centipede spirit energy wrapped around him and flowers blooming, and he is just looking like a villain. He's looking like the final villain. So he did say in 97, when he was fighting against Azumi and Natsuki and Uraha, specifically when he was fighting against Azumi, he said that he was ready to live up to Azumi's expectations of him. And that's where I had said in that video, that makes me worried, because Yura, even then, had still not truly exerted himself, I felt, to his highest degree. And he clearly got away from that group, and he's showing up and showing that he is the leader of the Hishaku for a reason. And he congratulates or tells Yukisada that he had a job well done. And this is where we see our group of Hagiwara, Hakari, and Kiri. They're behind the wall, and Hagiwara's like, we're too late. And Hakari's like thinking to himself, I thought Mr. Azumi was holding him off. And Hagiwara continues that for one instant, he glimpsed what he was holding, what Yura was holding in his hand. And this is where we see he is holding Azumi's left hand and arm section, probably like his forearm. And obviously we know it's his. We saw his bloody fists at the beginning of the chapter, and we know his hands and everything were torn up from the power of the Shinichi when Yura had used Dragonfly to counter against Azumi, and it shredded his bones and his muscles and his hands, but Azumi kept powering through regardless. But clearly here, he's at least lost a left arm. It's not looking good. It's not looking good for Azumi, especially. I'm hoping dearly that he is not dead, but considering the powers of the Shinichi, he might actually be gone. And that would make me very, very sad. Azumi is one of my favorite members of the Kamunabi. I think he's just sweet. I just like him. I can't really, his relationship with Rokuhira. But hopefully, since Yura is like on an actual mission. Maybe after he took all those guys out, he didn't like stick around to make sure like he finished the job immediately. And we obviously have Samura outside of the barrier, who hopefully will get in soon. And he obviously has the ability of the Tobi Mune. He has Suzaku, that if they are not like straight up dead, that he can potentially heal them, and we can have a resurgence, and he'll make it out alive. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down below regarding Azumi and even Natsuki and Uraha, because they were both there as well. But Yura actually goes to reach for the wall of iron sand, but he then stops and says, "Enough delaying." And we see him actually walk away. He chooses to just walk away from them when he could definitely get through that and kill them here. But he chooses, like, I'm done delaying. We don't have time. So he walks away, and we just get panels of all of these flowers that are left behind, along with dead bodies from the surveillance room for where the swordmaster is being observed. And Yura just stepping. We see the butterflies, the flowers. He's walking down the steps, down into this chamber that has this domed structure with pillars, broken pillars on top of it. And he walks out on top of it, and it's surrounded by like water or some sort of dark liquid. And he walks out on top of it. He feels it and says, "Down below, he's here." And we get a panel, and we see the sword master. And that is where chapter 99 ends. So that's what I was saying in the very beginning. This sets us up for chapter 100 being a potentially sword master focused chapter, which would be absolutely insane. If Yura breaks through here, I don't see the sword master dying, but I don't know if I see Yura dying here either. I'm thinking or hoping we're going to get maybe some big revelations this next chapter. I'm not really sure. I absolutely loved this chapter, as much as I dislike seeing Azumi's arm and the implications of his death. I'm hoping he was not off-screened, but I guess only time shall tell. But regardless, I loved this chapter of Kagurabachi. I would love to hear what you all thought about the chapter as well, and what you think we have in store for big chapter 100. But regardless, I appreciate you all. If you made it this far in the video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe if you would like to see more from me. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.